Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources in health and finance and career. But more importantly, this podcast is all about athletes transition out of sport. It's such a major issue today between financial literacy, mental health, and we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey out of sports, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Sherman Merricks. How you doing, Sherman?
I'm doing great, Rob. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So Sherman was a basketball player in college, and he played at Southeastern University in Florida and had a great career there. And then ultimately, when he got out, it was like anybody with transition. He got into some different things, didn't really like the real world per se. So he got into some personal training, kind of started his entrepreneurial career there, and then opened a CrossFit gym. And over time, he really saw a need to help others and other gyms in marketing and getting people to be involved. And so he started LASSO, and we're going to talk about that. I was joking around with him about lassoing people in, but which is kind of, I guess, probably the name a little bit. You can tell us how we got the name there. We'll get into that a little bit later. So Sherman, talk about playing sports growing up. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Yeah, I believe, you know, growing up, sports played a huge role in my life. I was raised by a single mom, my sister and I, and so for me, sports allowed me to sort of just be focused on something outside of school because my mom, she did not play about our grades, so I had to make sure I had good grades. But sports allowed me to sort of be dedicated to something, right? I believe sports kept me out of trouble. Like I never got in any trouble growing up, just because I was so disciplined and focused on playing basketball. Even to this day, I tell everyone, you know, one of the best things that happened to me when I was a young kid. I want to say I was probably fifth grade because my friends and I would still talk about it every now and then. So we're in fifth grade, uh, and so I would have been about 10. I'm 42 right now. And I remember this story like it was yesterday. We were playing City League basketball, right? And the City League basketball, they decided they were going to create an all-star team, right? Well, they normally had an all-star team, but this year they decided they're going to have an A team and a B team. Obviously, the A team is a little bit better than the B team. Now, I just know without a shadow of a doubt that I'm going to be an all-star. That's not even an issue. But I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be on the A team. It comes out and I'm not on the A team. I'm on the B team. But all of my buddies made the A team. Rob, that was a that was such a crucial and vital point for me that I think it changed the trajectory of my life. Of course, at the time I didn't know it, but I remember I was going home. Like I went home, I was crying to my mom. She's like, "What are you crying for?" Like, I didn't make 18. I didn't make 18. She's like, "Okay." And I remember my mom specifically. She's like, "Okay, so like, what are you gonna do about it?" I was like, I don't know. Like, what can I do?" And she was like, "Okay, let's go outside and shoot some shots then, because we have to get better." And from that point on, I was like, no one will ever, ever outwork me again, right? Like there'll never be, like I'll never lose a sprint. I'll never lose a drill. So sports definitely played a huge role in my life growing up.
Yeah, that's great. I love that story. I was kind of picturing like the movie version of that. Just like, okay, here's Sherman. He's got this chip on his shoulder. So the A team is playing the B team because they made the championship. They beat all the other teams. And there's Sherman scoring like 45 points, dunking over his friends and stuff like that. So did you play any other sports besides basketball?
I played football up until middle school, but football wasn't for me. I'm not that tough, Rob. I figured out quickly. I grew up in Florida, and football is big in Florida, and uh, I decided I'm not tough enough to keep getting hit like that. Like if you look at me, you're like, "Oh, this guy probably could have been a decent football player with my bill," and I probably could have. I probably would have been a better football player than basketball player because I'm only 5'9". However, I got hit a few times, Rob, and I was like, I'm a basketball player. I'm not a football player.
There you go. Yeah. I had a guy. It's funny. I had a guy on the podcast, and yeah, he was talking about how he's in like seventh or eighth grade, and he played football for the first time, and he'll never forget. He was like a fullback or a tight end, but basically it was kind of like one of those longest yard plays. We remember for where like the line just they let him go, and the line just come.
Yeah.
So they come in and basically just like drill the guy, and he goes down, and he's talking about his face mask into the ground, gravel and all that other stuff. But what he said was, he goes, that was a defining moment in his life. He said that will never happen again. And this guy went on to be a very successful like CEO of like a major company. There's those incidents that definitely affect you for
For
sure, for
sure.
sure. Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's talk about when you're in college at Southeastern, and both of us. I mean, we've been out, me a lot longer than you, but been out of school. Was there education on transition out of sport? Just like, okay, you're done, and here's some of the things you need to look for in the future. Not just like a 1 day workshop, but more of like a class or a full workshop.
No, for sure, right? Like we were me again by that point, college, I'm a young man. I am focused on obviously basketball, my craft, but I'm also focused on my grades and like what am I gonna do, right? Because every athlete, listen, if you're listening to this, I understand that many people think they're gonna play a little bit longer than they really will. But for most, you've done a great thing by making it to college to play a sport. After college, most people are not going to play any type of professional sport. So for me, I knew that. I was just like, okay, I've started counting down the years. I figured out, like, okay, so I'm not going to go to the NBA or across seas. I'm not willing to do that. So I was like, all right, I only have 2 more years to play. And I just started saying, okay, like what do I need to start looking at? But there was no formal, any type of program, anything for us as athletes at the school. Obviously, we got baseball, football, basketball, tennis, everything. There were no programs per se. It's sort of just thank thank you for your service. Even if you have a great career, you win a national championship, that's great and all that. But once it's over, you were sort of just let loose into the real world. Good luck, thank you, come back, and that was it. So no, there was no formal program or anything like that.
Yeah, and it's hard. And I think there really needs to be. I mean, especially even not only for the current athletes who are there, but even for the alumni athletes to come back and kind of go back to their alma mater and just tap into that. And we talk about doing that with various resource partners, Alumni Directive, just trying to develop some additional curriculum to go in and kind of partner with the schools and offer that out for both the current athletes and the alumni athletes, because it's just so important. And yeah, one guy on a podcast talked about it. He just said, Rob, if I would have had even like a 6 week workshop or a mandatory class, would have made a big difference. And there
For
are,
sure.
and so I think today schools are making strides, not all of them, but I mean some. So I mean, you're seeing a little bit out there, which is good. So let's talk about networking, connecting. It's so important. Talk about especially the importance while you're still playing your sport.
Yeah, so I believe that, just my personality, the way I'm wired, I'm a people person. I'm sort of charismatic, outgoing. So for me, the networking piece sort of came naturally, right? That's just my natural tendency. I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to interact with fans, parents, because when you're playing sports, especially if you're good, let's be honest, you're sort of on at that time, right? Like it's sort of your time, right? It's short lived, but it's sort of your time. Building the correct type of relationships definitely matter. But I don't think that athletes are really taught that, hey, these relationships can absolutely change the trajectory of your life post sports. I still, to this day, I've been out of college almost, I graduated in 2005. So I've been out of college like 20 years, it'll be this year. And I still talk to some of the administrators, some of my teachers, obviously some of my friends that I made connections with 20 years ago when I was an 18-year-old kid, right? However, some of my teammates, I'll talk to them. I'll be like, oh, have you talked to anyone? But they were like, no, I don't talk to anyone. And I think that's sort of been a key to my success as well is I don't meet a stranger. During your playing days, there's the time where you sort of have people's attention. And it's best for you to show interest in others. And because you never know when you'll come across someone, it may be 10, 15 years from now. You may go into an interview or you may hire someone and you'll be like, huh, look at that. So there's always, like you talked about, those few degrees of separation. They definitely come into play. So while you're playing, I would tell anyone that listening, just go out of your way to meet people and be nice to people because it goes a long way post playing.
Yeah, and it's key there to being nice to people and helping people. I mean, and I even talk about just networking even when you're in high school. I mean, a lot of people are maybe intimidated by it, but you've got a friend group there. You've got their parents. You've got coaches. You got people in the community that you start building relationships, which is the key. So it's not necessarily maybe you're not helping them now, and they might not even be helping you now, but it's something that, like you said, it could be down the road. Just something comes up, and all of a sudden, there's that connection. The other thing that I kind of talk about a lot as well is that just kind of cross networking between sports. It seems like a
Mm.
lot of times people don't do that. It seems like, the basketball players hang with the basketball players, football with football, baseball, especially when they get to the higher levels and professionally. Talk a little bit about that and your experience and maybe some thoughts on how athletes can just more intertwine with the different sports.
Yeah, and I believe that a piece of that is definitely sort of on the schools and stuff like that because if I'm basketball season at a certain time, football, so a lot of the stuff where you would just have these relationships, it does take work because like the time that I'm per se trying to get strong is not necessarily the same time that the football guys or the baseball guys are trying to really get strong. They're in a different phase of training. For me, I would say you can build these relationships, but you have to be intentional because if you just let it play out, like that's why like I don't think it has anything to do with like athletes of whatever sport. They don't set out to, well, I'm only going to hang out with my football buddies.
Right.
It's just we
Timing.
have schedules, correct? We have schedules and we stick to it, and then that's it, right? So, but I believe that, especially if you stick around school over the summer and stuff like that, well, those are huge opportunities to hang out with athletes of different sports. And you can go to lunch or dinner with some of these guys on campus and girls on campus because, again, the relationships matter, right? Like I used to always try to show support for other teams. And I think the kids today do a very good job of supporting other sports, But I believe that a lot of it is really the scheduling has to be really locked in, out in so that you can have these opportunities to, train with other athletes, train with other sports. But if you don't, if you just follow what everyone is doing, you're only going to hang out with that small subset of group athletes that you came in with because that's just the way they structure it.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Like you said, you got to look at those downtimes this summer, or maybe on the weekends.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you still got games going on all that. But it's just trying to, I always say athletes have a similar DNA skill set. A skill set might be different based on the sport, but still, you have that affinity relation to each other. You all started playing sports when you're really young, and definitely recommend tapping into. I do a monthly networking event for my podcast guests, and typically, what I'll find is I'll have all across the gamut. I mean, I've had guests that are, NFL players, Major League Baseball, basketball players, wrestlers, handball players, swimmers, skiers, MMA fighters. I mean, across the whole gamut. But it's cool to see when we get together, just everybody rolling up their sleeves, like, what can we do to help each other with our businesses? And I think that's kind of the mentality, the approach is that as you're going through school and like I said, it could be even starting high school, is to just start developing these relationships and be willing to help others.
Yeah, correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I agree with that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about alumni connection. Obviously, that's important to us at Alumni Direct. So back when you were at school at Southeastern, was there any type of push to bring the alumni athletes back, and not just for the one-day golf tournament or anything like that, but more so to interact and maybe mentor with some of the young players at the time?
Yeah. So no, to answer your question, no. But every now and then, we would get them back for, like you said, the one day, tournament or come back to the campus for one day for homecoming and see what's going on. But they were in and out. They had their families. There was no, consistency with us having access to former athletes and being able to ask them questions and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure we could have had we seen them on campus, go up to them and exchange numbers and stuff. But again, we're 18-year-old kids, right? Like we're not taking that type of initiative with a grown man or woman with a family. We're not going to do that. Like, oh, okay, that's such and such. That's cool. But no, there was not a lot of formal opportunities to sort of do that.
Yeah, it's funny. You always hear those stories. Somebody brought up a story about how there was some kind of event, and like his buddy was in school at the time, and the athlete, and had the opportunity to sit next to. I don't remember who it was. It might have been somebody like a Bill Gates. Like I mean,
Yeah,
like prominent, and
yeah,
the person didn't really know who that was, and just that's again, you never know. And I mean, I think tapping into that alumni base is important because people want to help me. Do you ever do they reach out to you today at all?
not really. Besides what we were talking about the other day, besides the
The
Do you want
fundraise.
to donate? Correct. Do you want to donate some money? Like, how much money can you get from you? But other than that, not really.
Yeah, and I think every school is different. I mean, I had one person on, and it was kind of cool. Their school now is pretty progressive, and they're bringing back the athletes. And like I said before about being siloed to the sport itself, I mean, they're bringing them back, and so it might be that they bring you back, and you might be working with a baseball player, or soccer player, or swimmer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a basketball player. I mean, you can relate to basketball, but again, it just gets back to the whole sport thing. Is you're practicing, you're doing a lot of the same kind of things, just a
Oh
different
yeah, for
sport.
sure, for sure.
And doing that mentoring. So here is, and I don't know if you got a chance to watch any episodes, you're listening to the episodes. If you haven't, then there'll be the surprise question, so to speak. So if you can go back in time, like in a time capsule, and you go back to talk to freshman Sherman at Southeastern, 10 words or less, what advice would you give to him?
Oh man, that's a good question. So 10 words or less. I would tell Sherman to stay very focused, but help as many people as possible. That's not 10 words. That's not 10.
It's close. So I'll tell you what, I like it. Because a lot of times people have watched or listened to the episode, in preparation, and then they're like, okay, and they're going 1, 2, 3. Like they're counting them out, or they're thinking, and they still can't do it. So I mean, you were good. I mean, that was pretty close. And I mean, it's hard to do, but I think it's an interesting take to look back and see, where you were then, and like, it's always like if I knew then what I know now, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now we'll fast forward to senior Sherman.
Yeah. Yeah. So
What would have you told him?
man, I would have told him again, stay focused, right? Like stay focused. I met my wife my freshman year of college, and we dated all throughout college. As soon as we graduated, we got married. So, I would say, stay focused, but be sure to marry that girl that you're dating. Be sure, don't drop that ball, don't fumble that ball. That's the one. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But mine was kind of a similar story, but a lot later. I mean, I met my wife senior year, but it was like the same thing. It's like we met senior year, and then we're married, pretty much like a year later. So
Yeah.
I got that path. It just took me a couple more years to find her.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
yeah, it's good. So let's talk a little bit about I mentioned before about the athlete DNA, athlete skill set. From your experience, and now you own your own marketing firm, and you had a CrossFit gym and all that. Did you look, and do you look to hire athletes, and if so, kind of share with other athletes out there so they kind of get a good feeling of like, okay, well, I'm done with my sport, I'm done with school, but now what am I going to do?
Yes, no. So being in my eyes, obviously, I'm an ex-athlete, ex-collegiate athlete. So when we have guys and girls that have played sports, it's not really about like I don't ask anyone. Well, we'll get to that eventually when we start talking. But if someone's comes in, I'm looking at their application, their resume, and I notice that they played a sport at such and such school for 4 years. I'm like, okay, like for me, I know they're going to be pushed sort of to the top of the pile because I know they're going to be dedicated, right? I know they're going to be at least a little focused. And if I'm being honest, for me, like if they put, most people really don't put like their accolades on there, but knowing that someone played sports in college to me lets me know that like they're going to be focused like on their craft because for them to get to college to play sports, that means in high school they had to be focused as well to get there. So yes, like we like athletes to reach out because we know that they're going to be focused for the most part.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, and I think a lot of athletes, yeah, and as we've talked to some current athletes at different schools, they just talk about like career services, and just not that they don't care, but it's just that they're the bandwidth is small at a lot of these
Yeah,
schools. And so now as an athlete, you don't really get an opportunity to do internships and things like that. I mean, some do, it depends on what sport you're in and what school, but I think it just becomes more of a challenge. And we talk about that your resume is being an athlete. That's your resume. And to
correct.
what you just talked about is that skill sets, and what you look for, the leadership, and the practice, the hard work. You're all seeing it there.
Right. No, I agree with you. Like it's funny though, like when I was growing up, I remember I had a few coaches and they would when you're young, pre-college, very young. And I remember we would have teammates, like we've all had it. We had teammates that would quit get upset because we're having to run 2 minute sprints and stuff like that. And guys would quit. Guys would quit teams. I'm not doing this, whatever. And I remember one of my coaches told us, he was like, the same guys that quit today because of they have to run extra suicides or they quit because things don't go their way. These are going to be the same guys that are going to quit later in life. And for some reason that stuck with me. And then I remember some of these guys that would quit. And I would say that their lives didn't turn out great because they didn't have that track record of staying disciplined and focused and motivated through the good times and the bad. So for me, that's why I really enjoy working with athletes, because if someone has made it through, little league, high school, college, they've stuck some things out. They've dealt with some good times and they dealt with some bad times. So
Sure.
yeah, I like.
Oh, that's good. All right. So now we're getting ready to transition out of sports. So you played your whole life. You said talk about playing growing up, and a lot of athletes do. Obviously, start maybe sometimes as young as like 5, 6 years old. So how was your initial transition as you coined it before into the real world, which we hear a lot of people saying?
Yeah, so coming out into the real world, it was definitely an eye opener because you're 18 when you go to college for the most part, and I played 4 years of sports. So I basically went from growing up at home at 18, go off to this university for 4 years, never really having to worry about money because when I was at home, my family took care of me. When I was in college, the school takes care of you, and then you get out and things change quickly. There's a
Well,
big
culture
world.
shock.
Correct. There's a big world and all that. Now you have to get a job. You don't know much about jobs, or at least I didn't. I didn't know much about jobs. Just know, hey, I have to work. And for me, I sort of took a job at the university. I can't remember what I was doing, but I know that I hated it. I do know that. Like I
You
remember
wiped
that
you wiped it
much.
out of your mind.
Correct. Like I knew that much, and I was just like, this can't be for me. Like this can't be what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. There's no way I can't wake up, go to work for 8 or 9 hours, and then come home and relax a little bit and do the same thing for 30, 40 years. So that's what sort of pushed me. Some of my friends, they happen to be entrepreneurs, and they mentioned something like, "Oh, well, you can do this or that." I was like, "Well, I don't know how to do it." They was like, "Yeah, most people don't. You just do it if you're unhappy now, unless you just want to stay unhappy forever." And my pain point at that job was bigger than the thought of me not doing it. So that's why I started personal training people on the side before work, after work, and that sort of just started to roll down the hill, right? Because now someone would tell their friends, like, "Oh, can that guy train me?" And then I started doing them in small groups, in different areas of town. Again, it was strictly by word of mouth. People would tell, "Oh, yeah, I have to go to this group," and it got to a point where I really didn't have the time to work my day job because I was so worried about my morning and night job of training folks. I remember my wife and I talked about. I was like, I think I can make enough money training these people, and not have to go to this job. And my wife, being great, she's like, all right, let's give it a try. Because at the time, she was still working. So I was just like, okay, let's give it a try. So, we were young, 23, 24, whatever. And it worked out, right? Like it worked out. And I look back now, I'm glad that we did it early because a lot of times, I mean, we all know, like once you start having a family and just other responsibilities, it's a much bigger leap of faith to get into entrepreneurship. So with us having got involved so early, I look back and that was definitely a huge bright spot that we didn't understand at the time. Because if I'm being totally honest, I'm 42 right now. It would be tough for me if I was working, a 9 to 5, and I had sort of climbed this ladder, this corporate ladder. And now at 42, I'm saying, oh, I want to open up this gym. So I had to give up everything that I've worked for. Like it would be a little bit more difficult. But that was sort of the path coming out of school. It was just I didn't know what to do. I got a job, a quote unquote job, and I didn't like it, and I had to figure something out, and I did.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I mean, you recognize it, and you're right. It is tough to be an entrepreneur, especially great that your wife was supportive. Your partner's always you need that support. So, give some advice to athletes as they transition out of sport, whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to finishing college, whether maybe even the professional athlete. Give some words of advice.
Yeah. So my biggest piece of advice would be think about all the time that we dedicate to our sports, especially collegiate athletes, high school and for you to make it to college. Think about all that time that you spent at practices in the evening or the morning and individual practice and weightlifting and all of that. Remember that you're going to have to do that for your career to become good at what you do, to become well compensated and stuff like that, right? So you sort of, when you're first coming out of school, you're sort of starting over in the sense of you don't have a lot of sweat equity in this real world yet or working, you haven't proven anything. So now you need to take those same skills, that same mindset into your workplace, whether that's working for someone or being an entrepreneurship. Like it is going to be work and you're going to have to work your butt off to get whatever it is you want.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, again, they've done it their whole lives. You've done it. All of us as
Correct.
athletes have worked hard. So, why not apply it? And I guess like they always say too, have that plan. I think it's different too, like from depending on what sport or the size of the school you go to, like you said, realizing like, hey, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. So just knowing at that you're going to maybe put a little more time into, what you are going to do. Cause one of the biggest things that, that we see is the loss of identity. And
Yeah.
if you've been a basketball player your whole life. Yeah, in my case, I was a runner. It could be a football player, baseball player, whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden you're not, but you have many years ahead of you. So definitely, look to see what you can do. So let's talk about now. So you finally decided to hit the entrepreneurship. So again, obviously, as a personal trainer you were, but then you bought a CrossFit, or you bought a CrossFit gym. So talk a little bit about that experience of now owning a gym and working there.
Yeah. So, like starting the gym, again, I was young enough to not understand how big the risk was. And I was hungry enough to say I'm gonna do whatever it took, right? So coming out, man, I look back now, Rick, there was just so much. There's just so much I didn't know, right? But it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah,
which is good at times.
sure.
So I was basically just showing up every day and doing what I thought I needed to do. Again, I took that same mindset, that same trait. I'm going to outwork everyone. Like no one's going to outwork me. I'm going to wake up earlier. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to stay up later. And I did that for a season. And then when I looked up, I started to realize, oh, this thing is like really growing. I have like 50 or 60 people paying me. I'm like, this is like a real thing. And we just sort of kept that up for years and years until you create a big enough snowball. And now it was just like, wow, like this is pretty crazy. Like I look back, even like I was just talking to someone the other day. I was starting my gym and I remember, having all of these members and all these people paying me hundreds of dollars a month to join my gym. And I was like, it's crazy because I was only like 30 years old and all these people trusted me with their health and fitness. And I look back, there was so much I didn't know, but I worked my butt off. I showed up every day and the days sort of, just like in sports, like the days stack on themselves. And one of the sayings that I tell my kids, other athletes I'm around, the work never comes back void, right? So if you put in the work, like it's not going to come back void, right? So whether that's in sports, right? If you do the things you're supposed to do consistently, regardless of the obstacles, you're going to be okay long term. It may not look exactly how you want in the beginning, but it is impossible to do the work day after day, month after month, year after year, and not become better at the sport
Yeah,
consistently, right? Same thing in your business. It is impossible to do the right things day after day, month after month, year after year, and your business not get better, right? But again, you have to be doing the right work. So you got to have the right coaches and right mindset and all of that. That's why I believe that, for me, sports just prepared me for the real world. All those hard work, all those lessons. I remember, I could being younger and going to bed at night. My legs are hurting from practice all day. My back's hurting. We, playing pickup and practicing all day. And I remember that same thing when I was a young entrepreneur, coaching all these people all day, driving across town. I go to bed, my back hurting, my legs hurting. It's sort of like the same feeling, but I was just putting that energy into something else.
yeah, yeah. That's great. And I mean, how big do you like CrossFit gyms get? And is it just like you own one, or like people own
Yeah.
multiples, or
So yeah, no, it was it's sort of dependent. I only had one. I only want in the beginning. I thought I wanted multiple gyms until I had one decent sized gym, and I was like, oh no, I can't. Like, I can't handle more than one. So like, it sort of depends because there's plenty of people that have multiple gyms. For me, business isn't really I mean, vision really isn't a vanity exercise. And what I mean by that, right? Like, I don't care what it looks like. For me, if my business is profitable and I enjoy it, that's the only thing that really matters to me. So, once I got into my business, we're having success. I was like, okay, like one is good, right? Like one is good. Having multiple gyms and stuff like that, like that's a lot of work. And I didn't want to go down that.
I can imagine. So let's then go after, you and the gym, you decided to get into and created a marketing firm called Lasso. So first of all, tell everybody how the name came about.
Yeah. So Lasso, well, actually the name came about because again, I'm hiring people that are smarter than me. My business coach, I told him, hey, we're gonna start this new business. We need a name for it. And he's super creative like that. And he was like, what about Lasso? I was like, I don't love it, but let's sort of talk about it. So LASSO actually stands for Lead and Sales System Optimization, but we call it LASSO for short because obviously you're not going to say all that every time. So we basically specialize in paid social media marketing and sales training specifically for gyms, right? So we don't work with, as right now, we don't work with doctors' offices or anything else. I know the gym industry. We know the gym industry, right? I've been in it pretty much my entire adult life. So I feel like that was a good sort of segue for us to get into when I sort of had an expert level of knowledge on the back end because I had done everything in my gym and all of that stuff. That's how Lasso sort of came up. I was having success in my gym. People were reaching out, asking for help. And then I was like, well, surely I can charge them. And once I saw that people were like, okay, yes, I'll pay you. I was like, okay, we might have something special here. And that's how it started. Again, one of those things you don't know how. I never in a million years thought I would own a marketing firm like that. I didn't know much about marketing, but that's the way it works. Like that's just how it happens.
Yeah, and I got to imagine that, like, when you talk about some of the bigger chains, obviously in gyms, that they've got internal marketing departments and things like that. But I'm sure these individual owned gyms or even franchise location gyms, they need help in that. They probably, whether they do have an internal marketing team or not, I'm sure they can utilize and just you bringing that expertise. So are there areas that you kind of like excel in? When you talk about when you're coming and talking to these different gyms.
Yeah, so for us, our big thing is really getting your story right. Again, we work with like micro gyms, I like to call it. So gyms with 500 and fewer clients, right? Like we don't work with big crunch fitness goals gyms. That's not our thing. So we work with like micro gyms, and most of those gyms are owner operated, right? Owners trying to figure this thing out, get the right clients in because they can't play the numbers game. Like if they need 10,000 members, like they're gonna die, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how we come in. We really come in with the wording and making sure that they know how to speak to their ideal client. And then obviously the sales training, that's a big piece of what we do because it doesn't matter how great of stuff we put out. If we get the people in front of you and you can't close them, you can't sell them, you can't talk about why your gym is the solution to their problem, you're gonna be a hungry gym owner. You're gonna be a hungry gym owner. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's great because you're like you see. I mean, you're bringing the credibility because you've done it yourself. Sometimes people they can talk about all they want, but they don't have that experience. But because you've got that experience, you're able to parlay that to others and kind of help them in their missions.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. Definitely.
So, any other things that you do? Like you do any podcasts or books or anything?
Yeah, so no, we do a podcast for Lasso. I do
Okay.
that. It's called Gym Marketing Made Simple. That's the name of the podcast. It's on all your platforms, Spotify, Apple, all of that. But we get on there weekly and we're just trying to give value to gym owners, right? To help them because with the way that America's set up, there's a lot of people that need to be healthier and fitter. So for us, I want to help the gym owners who are helping the members, right? Like I no longer help the clients per se, but I help the gym owners who get to help the clients. So when we come in, we're talking to gym owners specifically, giving them best practices and all of our, experience on how they can help more people in their community.
That's good. That's really good. So, how can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me. You can find me on social. My name is Sherman Merricks, which is a little unique. So there's not a lot of Sherman Merrickses out there. I'm the really cute African American guy, so easy to find. So Sherman Merricks, you find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I said Twitter. It's not Twitter.
X, yes,
Yes, you
X.
can find me on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, all of that right there. It's just Sherman Merricks.
And then
Or
what's
or you can visit the website. You can visit Lasso's website. It's lassoframework.com. Lassoframework.com.
okay? Old school. I like that. I always talk about that. It's like it's www. No, but we'll put it in the show notes. But now this has been great. You can find us at alumnidirect.com and our the show Athletes Entrepreneurs Alumni Journey. We're on the Alumni Direct YouTube channel as well as across all the different podcast networks, Spotify, etc. And we really encouraged people, athletes, to watch and listen. And each week, I mean, every week, when I edit these things out, I was talking to Sherman offline about it. It's just the content is great. I mean, it's a major issue with transition out of sport, and people need to know there's athletes and other people that want to help out. And so just the advice that comes across each one of the podcasts is always, I call them the nuggets, always get some kind of good nuggets. So I definitely encourage it. Sherman, this has been great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, my pleasure.